All right, we're live. Hey everyone, Chrissy here from Real World Witness, and I am here with my special guest, John J. Davis. I'm very excited about this guest because he had a near-death experience. He also was given the gift, basically, of 100% recall of his time in heaven. So I'm very excited to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chrissy. It is such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. I so appreciate to share my story with your audience. So thank you.
Yes, and I mean it was. Listen, when I saw your show, I saw you on Next Level Soul, I think is what it was,
Okay.
and I just absolutely, I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to talk to this guy. It was so amazing, uh, what you've been able to see, and it's trying to wrap my head around it. So I'm anxious. I have a lot. I do have some questions for you as we get going, but
Oh, sure.
why don't you just kind of
Absolutely.
give people a little bit of your background before we start into your experience?
Sure. Well, my experience happened when I was 21. So I've had all these years to digest the experience, think about it, and be able to share my story. But my background is I
Hmm.
live in Colorado with my wife. We have two boys. My oldest one is 21. My youngest one is 20. I've worked for a corporation
Wow.
for a number of years out here. And what I do
Hmm.
on my free time is really just share my story to anybody who will
Hmm.
listen. I have
Yeah.
to say
Well, what made you
I'm oh, go ahead.
go ahead? No, you
No, I'm
go
fine.
ahead.
I was just gonna
Oh, I was
say,
just gonna say, what made you decide to? I mean, at what point did you decide to like that you had to tell the story? Because I mean, I would have been like talking my head off from the get go, probably. I don't know if
you
people
know,
would have been leaving me, but
it's funny. That's a really good question because for so many years I was used to what I experienced, and it became
hmm.
old hat for me. Well, then
Hmm.
when I would tell people about my story, they would, for someone hearing it for the first time, it really is pretty amazing
Yeah.
the thing that happened to me. And I realized, you know what, John, if this helps people that you talk to individually, because I only talked to people at work, friends, people I
Hmm.
knew. I didn't know anything about social media at the time. So when I
Yeah.
put my story on Facebook, I had a lot of people saying that it helped them a lot. It gave them
Hmm.
hope. It gave them
Yeah.
encouragement that none of us really die. That the
Right.
earth life on earth is just a short period of time. And so I realized that I need to try to do what they told me to do, which was
Hmm.
to tell people as much as you can about your experience. So when I went on live with Facebook, I just
Hmm.
posted my story there, and I had a lot of positive comments. So that kind of what got
Hmm.
me trying to share my story even more because it helps so
Yeah.
many people.
Well, in this day and age, we have so much crazy going on around us. There's so much fear porn out there.
Yeah.
There's so much, all this craziness. People forget that we're spiritual beings. I think they've kind of beat it out of us. I mean, they've taken God out of everything, right?
Yeah.
And I think people are really like searching for, where do we go? Like, is there something else? I just need to hold on to something. And so that's why your story is so inspiring, I think, for a lot of different people.
Yeah, yeah, that's it's good, and it's amazing too because there isn't a day that goes by that I don't think about it,
Yeah.
and it gives me hope. It's such a
Yeah.
it's such a wonderful story of hope for all of us, and
Hmm.
I just love sharing it.
Yeah. Well, when I the only thing that I can tell you, as far as like, I've never had a near death experience, but I had a visitation. My nana that I was very very close to when I was 14 died. Okay, and I was just devastated. I used to go to her, on the weekends, and she used to pick me up from school. I was always
Oh
with,
yeah,
always with my nana, and then she died. And I think I was about 15. I remember having a dream. Okay, and this dream is still as vivid as it is today as it was when I was 15.
yeah.
Um, and I only remembered a snippet. Okay, but what I remembered was I was sitting in a it was a courtyard. We were in a courtyard of some sort, and those big stone type benches and the big stone
Oh yeah. Yep.
table with the inlay of the little pile.
Yeah.
And we were in, and I remember it being a courtyard because I remember looking across the courtyard, and we were just sitting there, and she was asking me like, what's going on with my dad? What's going on with you? What's going on with it? Like wanted an update, right, of everything.
Sure.
And then I remember her. She said, "Well, I'm gonna let me show you." The only thing that I remember from that is that we walked across the courtyard and we made like a left turn, and then to the right we peeked in this room, and it was like somebody was teaching. It was people were learning, and it was like
Oh,
this is where some of the people that we learn that teach. This is where people come to learn, and there was a big
wow, that's
chalkboard. I
interesting.
remember. Yeah, and that's the only thing that I remember as far as like any kind of vision or of heaven. But I do believe that I was there because it's so still vivid in my mind like that.
Oh my gosh,
So
yes, absolutely. How old were you?
I was 15,
So you were just
15 years old.
young, and see that something like that. I know that I'm convinced that if that that memory isn't came to you from God, God
Yes.
made you remember that so you could share your story. That's phenomenal
Yep.
because that's what I
Yep.
experienced too.
Yeah, it's so crazy. So why don't we get into it? Why don't you just
Sure.
explain like what happened? How did you end up having this near death experience?
Yeah, I'll start at the beginning.
Okay.
My dad won a sales contest,
Yeah.
and he was in sales, and he won two mopeds, or what we call scooters now. And
Yeah.
we used to ride them around all the time. And one
Hmm.
day I was out riding, and I had an accident, and I crashed into a tree. And the
Hmm.
way that I landed, I tore the tendons off my right hand, and I
Yeah.
had to go in and have them reattached. Well, I had never had surgery. I was only
Hmm.
21, hardly had ever spent any time in a hospital,
Yeah.
so I didn't really know what to expect. And so the day the surgery comes, go in and they start to give me the anesthesia. And I had an allergic reaction to the anesthesia, and it
Oh
stopped
wow.
my heart, and I died. And something I want to explain
Wow.
to your listeners, just to kind of set the stage for what happens,
Hmm.
is a lot of times when we hear about people's near death experience, they tell us that they pop out of their body, they're either at some kind of an
Hmm.
accident scene or they're in the hospital and they can see their body,
Yeah.
their soul is out, then they become aware of a tunnel. And at the end of the tunnel is a white light. And
Hmm.
oftentimes they're met by someone who tells them that it's not their time, they have to go back. Well, somehow I missed all that. I didn't have any of that part of a near death experience. Where mine starts is on the other side of the white light.
Hmm.
And to me, that was the most
Yeah.
interesting part of my whole experience to know what's on the other side of that white light.
Yeah.
So when my heart stopped, the next instant, the next thing I remember is I opened up my eyes and I was standing in the most beautiful building I have ever seen. It was made of marble, beautiful white polished marble, and it
Wow.
was so long that I could not see the end of this building.
Hmm.
Right about then, in my left ear, I heard, "My name is Alan. I'm your spirit guide."
Hmm.
And my spirit guide, we all have spirit guides.
Yeah.
I mean, they help us plan our lives, and they're with us during our lifetime. And my guide Alan took me to all these different places to show me what they looked like, what these buildings looked like. And then he took me to the inside and then explained to me what they were for. So that's how I'm able
Hmm.
to explain to your audience how this whole process unfolded. So I'm in this building, and my very first thought was, oh my gosh, I had no idea the hospital was this big. It was enormous,
Yeah.
and this whole time, I didn't know that I had died. So I was just going along with this experience as my guide was telling me. So in this
Hmm.
building, he told me this what I was in was called the Orientation Center. On the right hand side were gorgeous white tall marble columns, just like you see in Greece, maybe
Yeah.
30 feet high. They were all about 6 feet apart, going all the way down. In the center were these marble tables, and there were marble benches on each side of the table. And there were two people sitting at each table. My guide told me that they're orientation counselors because the building that I was in was called the Orientation Center. And that's the first place you go when you cross into the light after you die. You
Oh,
end up in the
okay.
Orientation Center. That's where you end up.
Hmm.
Well, on the left hand side were these tunnels. I don't know any other way to describe them other than they looked like doorways or tunnels.
Hmm.
And these tunnels connect Earth with the other side. And we pass through these tunnels when we come back from a lifetime.
Hmm.
And again, all the way down were these tunnels, and they looked like it was just blackness, beautiful. They were cut like 90-degree angles, just like a regular, like your front door is, but they were
Yeah.
tunnels. And my guide said to look at the next tunnel. So I looked at the next tunnel, and right then, a gentleman was coming through. He was elderly, maybe
Hmm.
80s or his 90s, and he had his right hand holding his chest. And my guide said he died from a heart attack. So he came through the tunnel, stepped in through the light, and into the orientation center. Well, one of the women that was closest to him, she stood up, this orientation counselor. She walked over, she took his hands in hers and led him back, and they sat down at this table. And my guide in her whole job on as an orientation counselor is to help people remember where they're from.
Hmm.
When we come into a lifetime, we tend to have amnesia about where we're from, where we're actually home, the other side, or heaven, the afterlife, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
That's our real home. And people forget, especially if they live a long life, they forget where they're from. So the orientation counselor basically reminds them that they just finished a lifetime on earth and they're back home now. And my guide told me to watch him.
Hmm.
So as she was holding his hands, she was talking to him. I couldn't hear because I was too far away, but she was talking to him, and all of a sudden he started to change. He changed from a man who was elderly into a man who was in his 30s.
Wow.
And the reason is all of us on the other side are in our 30s. And I don't know why that is, but my
Hmm.
guide said all of us are. We're all in our 30s.
That's
So she
amazing.
yeah, it is. So so she finished talking to him. He stood up and he walked off to the right
Hmm.
down 3 steps into what I call the gardens. They it was a it looked have you ever seen like an English garden where it's perfectly manicured?
Yes.
That's
I love
that's
that.
what this yeah, that's what this looked like. It was a absolutely just beautiful garden, flowers and beautiful trees and the
Wow.
greenest grass you've ever seen.
Hmm.
And what this is, after people have their orientation, they have a reunion, and
Hmm.
the people that have crossed before that person, whether it's loved ones, family, friends, grandparents, everybody is there to meet them when they
Hmm.
cross over. And the reason is it's a really big deal to come to a lifetime here on earth
Yeah.
because it's so hard here. There
Right.
are there are many people who don't want to come here because it is so hard. And that's why when you finish a lifetime, it's a big deal. And everyone was there to meet you. And that's what they call the reunion. It
Hmm.
was absolutely, and I can't wait to see that because it was so full of love. The people
Yeah.
were there. People like everyone that has crossed before you. Everyone's there to meet you when you cross over. So that was wonderful. So
That's
that was the
amazing.
yeah
I I can't wait to see. I know. I mean, that's the other thing. It's the love people forget. That's what you take with you, and we'll get into that more. But yeah, the
yeah
love is what. And I think too, the Earth is very hard. I mean, we're not in, we're not. It's not fun and games down here, that's for sure. And I think that yeah, we have to spiritually grow. That's why we're here. And
Oh
I
yeah,
feel like
absolutely. I
so.
always tell people Earth, what it feels like is coming to Earth is like being in a battle
Hmm.
and you're in a foxhole without a radio. You're cut
Yes.
off. And that's one of the hardest things, I think, is that when you're on the other side, you can feel God's love for you. He
Hmm.
absolutely, he cherishes every one of us. He loves every one of us. And you can feel that. It's tangible when you're on the other side. But
Yeah.
here on earth, and I don't know why this is, but we don't feel God like we do on the other side.
Yeah.
So that was one of the hardest things for me when I got back from my NDE was not having that feeling of God. It's just an
Yeah.
extraordinary feeling. I think that's probably one of the reasons why so many of us feel so lonely here is
Yeah.
we missed that connection.
Yeah.
So
And
anyway, so the first part is we go to the orientation center when we finish a lifetime. We go through orientation, we go
mhm.
through the reunion, and then my guide took me to a place that we call the life review. Have you heard of that before? Are you
Yes, I
still?
have.
Yeah. I think probably
Yeah.
a lot of people have heard that term now, and
Hmm.
it's true. We do have a life review, and the
Yeah.
purpose of it is to see if we accomplish the goals that we set for ourselves when we came here. So again, my guide took me to the outside of every building, and then he took me to the inside. And this building was where we go to have our life review. And it was a rectangle. It was a large building, as most of these were, and there were Greek columns all along the outside of the building. It was kind of a rectangle. So he takes me inside, and inside I was in a round room. And the best way I can describe it is it was like a theater, but instead of having one movie screen, all the movie screens were up in top, all around in a big circle. And all of a sudden, they turned on and it was playing episodes of my lifetime when I was when I was a baby, when I was a little toddler, when I was in elementary school. All the way through, each one of these screens was playing a different part of my lifetime up to that point of where I was at age 21.
Hmm.
And my guide said, all of us have life reviews. And again, the idea is to just see if you accomplished what you set out to accomplish. So that was called the life review.
Hmm.
The um the next place he took me to again was another building. It was a rectangle again with columns all along the outside.
Yeah.
And when we went inside, this was what looked like a regular movie theater that we have today. You walk in, and there's just one screen in the front. Well,
Hmm.
apparently, this is where we go when we're going to look at past lifetimes. And Chrissy,
Yeah.
this
This
was hard.
fascinates me because I believe in
Yeah.
past life, but it fascinates me that that they have this whole area where you can see it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
amazing.
Me too. This was one of the hardest things for me because I was raised Catholic.
Hmm.
We were so Catholic that we used to go to church 3 times during the week, and then on Sundays
Hmm.
we were always at church. And there was never any talk, of course, about past lifetimes or anything like that. So
Yeah.
it was hard for me to accept that, but
Hmm.
it's true. And he showed me 3 different lifetimes, and he wanted me all these places he took me to. He wanted me to be able to tell people what they were for and what these buildings were all about. And he showed me 3 different lifetimes,
Hmm.
and people, all of us can have as many lifetimes as we want. It's totally up to us. We don't have to come here if we don't want to. All
Hmm.
of those decisions are strictly up to each one of us. So he showed me 3 lives. One was of a monk. I was in a monastery. I had a shaved head and I was wearing a red kind of a gown or a robe, And my job was to teach the kids
Mhm.
about life in a monastery. I was kind of a teacher. The next life he showed me was of a fisherman. I had a little old wooden boat and I had a net, and I would fling the net off the side of the boat to catch fish for the village. And then the third life he showed me was a life as a shoe peddler. And I had a
Mhm.
wheelbarrow and I had shoes in it. And my job in that village was to fix people's shoes. And so he just wanted me to be able to tell people that, yes, past lifetimes really are real and we can
Wow.
have as many as we want. What's unique about Earth, though, is like we talked a minute ago, that Earth is the hardest of all the planets.
Yeah.
And many people won't come here because it is so hard. So
Mhm.
that was the past life review building. The next one he took me to, this building was extraordinary. Have you ever seen the Pantheon, the Roman Pantheon in
Yes.
Rome?
Yes.
It's got that big dome on top.
Yes.
That's what this building looked like.
Oh
And
wow.
it had the dome and it had
Mhm.
columns all in a circle. And
Wow.
these buildings were absolutely enormous. They were just huge.
Wow.
And what this building was, this is where we go to plan our lifetimes. And my guide didn't tell me why, so I don't know why we go to this particular building, but this is where we go to plan our lifetimes.
Yeah.
And he took me to a table, and on the table were two scrolls,
Mhm.
and they looked kind of like they were rolled up, and they looked like papyrus, like how you'd write
Oh,
them.
okay.
Yeah, they look kind of like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know why there were two, but there were. So I
Mhm.
picked up one of them. And what these scrolls are is it's where we write down the main purpose of our lifetime. What do we want
Interesting.
to learn? What do we want to accomplish? What do we want to
Right.
do with this particular lifetime? And it's very detailed. We plan things like what country we're going to live in, what language we're going to learn, who our parents are going to be, what we're going to do for a career. All these different things are part of this, are part of these
Mhm.
scrolls that we write on, and everybody has one. And when I went to try to read the scroll, it
Mhm.
folded back up, and I wasn't able to read it
Oh,
because we're not
because
we're not supposed
you were
to.
gonna go back. That's why they were like, we don't. You can't get any previews.
Exactly. Yes.
Well,
Exactly.
it's
That's
about free will too, right? I mean,
yes.
like we're planning out what we want. This is my question that I wanted to ask you about. That is okay. So if we plan out, like I can't imagine why I picked my parents, but okay,
Yeah.
our families, there's always the dynamics, right?
Yep.
But my question is like why if it's free will, okay, so like if I decide this is what I want to do and you have free will, then when you come down here, what if you pick the wrong choice? Like what if you make the wrong choice? Like how does that work? Do you any insight on that? I mean, I don't know that there is a wrong choice per se, but maybe it takes you longer to get to where what your mission is, because I think of us as like having a mission down here.
Oh
uh,
yeah. That's how I
you know,
see it
and
too.
yeah. So, what are your thoughts on that? I don't
That
know.
that's a question I have had a lot also, and I've had many people ask me that question too over the years.
Hmm.
And I wish I could have a really good answer for you, but I just don't
Yeah,
know. I know that we come in to learn specific types of lessons. And
yeah.
people would always ask me, well, can't we learn those lessons on the other side?
Hmm.
And the answer is yes, we can still learn, but coming into an earth life
Hmm.
is kind of an experience that you don't have on the other side. The other
Right.
side, the other side is what I try to tell people, that it's an absolute paradise. It is
Yeah.
so beautiful. It's so wonderful there. It's like Earth, but there are no wars. There's no
Hmm.
hunger. There's no racism. There's no violence, and there's no
Right.
illness or disease. None of that exists there. So
Hmm.
you come into a lifetime here to actually learn. And here's the thing that they really enforced in me when I was there
Mhm.
is people tend to learn the most when they go through something hard.
Yeah,
Like
that's
if
true.
it's like a relationship breakup or you lose a job or something happens that you then that's where we learn from. And it's almost like trying to describe to somebody what it's like to ride a bike who's never
Mhm.
ridden one. You just
Right.
don't know what it's like until you actually do it for yourself.
Or
So that's the
swim,
reason. Yeah, that's the reason
or
why we
swim
come here.
even. You have to throw yourself in the pool.
Yeah,
Learn
yeah,
how to
exactly.
swim. You can't really, it's something that you have to experience, and you can't just. Yeah,
Yep.
I see what you mean
Yeah,
for sure.
exactly. So anyway, so I'm in this the scroll folds up, and right about then I looked off to my left,
Mhm.
and there was a huge window outside the building, and I looked out the window, and there was a walkway, and I could see people walking back and forth. And this was the first time that I
Mhm.
actually saw a lot of people. And everybody is
Mhm.
every kind of race, every ethnicity, every color is there. And people tend to wear robes or gowns or tunics, kind of like you would
Mhm.
see people wear things in Greece. But there were
Yeah.
also people there who wear jeans and t-shirts. They can wear whatever they
Mhm.
want. And on the other
Yeah.
side, and this was something that I I love to see. On the other side of that walkway, there was a
Mhm.
lake. This lake was absolutely beautiful, the most beautiful lake I think I've ever seen.
Wow.
And all around the perimeter of this lake were weeping willow trees.
Oh,
And you
I
know how
love
those,
willows.
yeah, you know how the
Yes.
leaves they flow over like this, and
Yes.
they were
I
the
love
leaves were
it.
sitting on the top of the water,
Oh,
and it was
beautiful.
it's absolutely just gorgeous, and the water was so clear. It was just
Oh,
beautiful. So they wanted me
wow.
to see that the other side
Mhm.
is also full of nature. There are
Yeah.
lakes, there are oceans, there are mountains to go hiking. It's absolutely beautiful, all kinds of nature. And they
Wow.
told me that everything you like to do here on Earth, you can
Mhm.
also do on the other side.
Oh,
Whether
that's
you
cool.
want to paint or you want to
Mhm.
go to music festivals or you love to construct things or you love to anything you love to do you can do there. It was just phenomenal. So here's the other part of this building that had the dome on top.
Mhm.
This is what my guide explained to me. All of us have soulmates. Have you heard that term before?
Yes, and I mean, like, I'm anxious about this because I mean, I'm looking. I haven't met my soulmate here, so I'm anxious to hear this again. Yeah, can you
Yeah,
tell me about that? Because
yeah,
yeah, I'm
absolutely.
like, where's my soulmate, man? I haven't met
Yeah,
Mr. Right at all. So just
I
like,
know.
is it possible he's not here? That's what I wondered about
You know what?
myself.
It is possible that he may not be
Hmm.
here. And there's a
Yeah.
reason for that. There's an absolute reason for it. Is
I love that.
the whole soulmate concept from what was explained to me
Hmm.
was that at the moment of creation, God also created a perfect mate for us that we
Hmm.
call soulmates. And that person is the mate that we have for eternity because we never die. We
Yeah.
God created us as eternal souls, so we live forever.
Hmm.
And we have a perfect mate. And what my guide took me to was another room that was inside this dome building. It was
Yeah.
so, I can't even begin to describe how large it was, but all of us have a book.
Hmm.
And the best way that I can describe what they looked like is they were kind of a burgundy looking book. They were all the same color.
Hmm.
And they
Hmm.
looked like Encyclopedia Britannicas.
Oh, yeah.
And my guide took me to my soulmate's book.
Hmm.
And I remember that the books, they didn't have the lettering that went horizontal. The
Yeah.
lettering went down, went from top to
Okay.
bottom. And it's in gold writing, and it said
Hmm.
Nina,
Hmm.
Nina. And that was my soulmate, Nina. And everything about our lifetimes, everything about the gifts God gave us, everything
Hmm.
about us are in these books.
Hmm.
And so all he wanted me to know that all of us have soulmates. Well, here's the thing that is kind of discouraging, sort of, about soulmates is that most of the time they don't come with us into a lifetime, and there's a reason for that.
And
And
why
the
is that?
reason,
Yeah.
yeah, the reason is that one of the best ways that we grow in life is to go through relationships. And many
Mhm.
times we grow when we have to work hard at these relationships. If you have a breakup and you
Mhm.
learn from them, well, if you have your
Mhm.
soulmate with you in life, you would never learn anything because it's your perfect
Well,
mate. Yeah, and
yeah.
that's the reason. On the other side, so if you don't ever meet who you think is going to be your soulmate, don't be
Mhm.
discouraged because they're there on the other side. They're all there.
Well, geez, and I'm not going to get there for a while, so
You know
it's
what?
going to be a little
I
while,
know.
hopefully.
I know exactly that feeling. And I think a lot of people feel that way. Now I don't know if that's always the case. I'm
Yeah,
sure that people do come down with their soulmates. Maybe they
yeah.
don't want to work on maybe they don't need to work on relationships.
Right, right.
Maybe that person comes with them. But
Yeah, that's
generally there is such an opportunity for us to learn when we come in to have
mhm.
relationships here,
Yeah.
because that's just like you mentioned a minute ago. That's why we're here, to learn and to grow. And I think God must have hardwired all of us to
Mhm.
want to learn and to grow, because that's we all love to learn new things.
Oh yeah. And I mean most people do. I think unfortunately the way that the world is right now, I mean it's kind of beating it out of a lot of people. Like they're like, "Oh, let's just go with the flow, go with the herd." You know what I mean? The herd mentality, just whatever I just whatever's easiest. I don't want to deal. But then you don't
Exactly.
grow. I mean, you don't learn anything. I mean, I'm always trying to do something to learn. There's always something to tackle. There's always something cool to tackle, and got to keep at it. You can't give up.
Absolutely.
That's sort of
Abs-
mindful thing is never give up. You always keep going. Whatever the obstacle is, you got to keep going. I mean, I've had plenty of obstacles, that's for sure. But I mean, I'm definitely I mean, I'm not ready to go. That's for sure. I mean, as much as I would like to go to see the other side. My sister died in 2006, so
oh, what happened?
it
What happened to her?
Oh, she when she was 18, she had a benign tumor in her stomach, and they went to remove it, and her aortic valve was in there, and anyway, it cut off the blood to her valves. They had to like do a graft, and then she was in and out of the hospital for like 15 years.
Oh my
And she
gosh.
Yeah, and then and I think ultimately her liver gave out is basically what it was, because of all the different times she had so many procedures done over the years. I mean, she always had issues, and she left her 12-year-old, my niece, her 12-year-old daughter. She was a single mom, so
Oh,
it
that's
was a hard life for her.
yeah.
But I think her mission was to have Taylor. So like I say, I think that there's even as hard as it is, and that I would love to go and have a reunion with my sister and my nana, my grand, all these people that I love that have crossed over. It's
Yeah.
just kind of like, we got to finish our mission here
Yep,
and
exactly. And
move forward.
something that is something I wanted to mention to your audience too, that is
Hmm.
it's really interesting when you cross over, everybody who crossed before you will be there.
Hmm.
And a lot of people have asked me, well, what happens if your mom decides to go into another lifetime, to have
Oh
another life
yeah.
somewhere? And what they told me was that everyone that crossed before you doesn't go anywhere until you get back. So
Oh, that's
everybody is, yeah, because
yeah.
they want to greet you after you finish your life. So they're all there
Yeah.
waiting for you.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I always wonder. Well, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about this later on. But I mean, the whole time thing, and we're living different same lives at the same time, and like that whole it gets confusing,
It
because then I
does.
think, well, okay, well, did Michelle, my sister, I mean, is she like reincarnated, like down in the family? Do we reincarnate in the same family? You know what I mean? There's like so many things that could
Yeah.
happen, so I'm glad to hear that they'll still be there.
Yep.
Because
They will. They
you
absolutely
know
will.
that's awesome.
Well, here, the next place he took me to was probably one of my favorites.
Mhm.
And again, he took me to the outside, and this looked like a stadium, like
Mhm.
a sports stadium. Absolutely humongous building. And incidentally, the part that he took me to, this whole I only saw one part of the other side, and
Yeah.
it was kind of like being on a college campus.
Oh,
You know how they have like your English building,
yeah.
then you've got your science building. Everything
Right.
is in is one. That's kind of like what I felt like I was looking at this whole
Mhm.
experience. So he takes me to the stadium, and we go inside, and there are thousands and thousands of seats in this
Mhm.
stadium. And what it was a planetarium.
Oh, cool.
Have you ever been to a planetarium?
Oh, yeah, I love the planetarium. I'm a planetarium person. I love
Yes,
it. Yes,
I did too. I love them. And this is
definitely.
where he took me to. It was completely empty, and there was a gentleman behind me, and his job on the other side was he loved to work in the planetarium.
Mhm.
And that's something I want to tell your listeners also is that on the other side, people do have jobs that they like to do, but they don't do them because they have to
Okay.
pay, because they don't have to have expenses like we have here on Earth, where you have to have a job to pay your
Right.
bills, your rent, utilities, all that kind of stuff. They work on the other side just because they love to do what they're doing. So this man
Mhm.
that was behind me, he loved to run the planetarium. And so we walk in, and he says, "Let's begin." And all the lights go off, and I sit down,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden the ceiling comes alive. And
Wow.
he said, "When you look at the stars, this is what you see." And what he was talking
Mhm.
about was people on Earth at our level of development, at our level of technology. This is what we see. And he showed me all of our planets in our solar system:
Yeah.
Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and they all started showing up.
Mhm.
And then it disappeared. And he said, when we look at the stars, this is what we see. And what
Mhm.
he was referring to was everybody on the other side with their level of knowledge and advancement. This is what they see.
Mhm.
All of a sudden, planet after planet after planet. First, there were dozens, then hundreds, then
Wow.
thousands of millions of planets. And all of them were different colors: blues, greens, brown, yellow. And he said, there is far more life in the universe than you can possibly know.
Wow.
And there were a couple things that I learned from that he wanted me to
Mhm.
share, was that Earth is not the only planet that has life.
Yeah.
And secondly, we can have lifetimes on other planets. And
Wow.
that was something that
That
absolutely,
amazes me
yes,
because I mean, there are, I always thought, there has to be a lot more other, I mean, obviously, we're not the only people out here. I mean, if you think that, then I don't even know what to say. You need to, like, maybe look up. I don't know. I mean, I live on the Washington Coast. Remember, I told you earlier when we were
yeah,
off camera. And yeah, I mean, I see UFO activity out here and stuff going on all the time. I mean, and I know for a fact that there is otherworldly things going on beyond this planet. And there's got to be. I mean, I always thought about, you're gonna laugh at me, but Star Wars, right? The movie, the
yeah,
original Star Wars, right?
yep,
And the cantina, when he goes into the cantina with all these different types of people, whatever. That's what I kind of think. That's what I think. The whole, like, everything is just a mishmash of all different types of species and
yep,
we're humans. I feel like we're lucky because we have souls and we're able to move. We're able to live forever. And I don't know if that's the case with the other beings. I don't know how that all works, but I just find
yeah.
that so fascinating.
It is. I'll tell you something that I read about a month ago. I love astronomy.
Yeah.
It's something that really interests me.
Mhm.
And there was an astronomer talking about the size of just the Milky Way galaxy. And
Mhm.
she was saying that in the Milky Way, just our galaxy, they
Mhm.
estimate that there are 100 billion planets
Wow.
just in our galaxy alone.
Oh
Doesn't
my,
that just blow your mind?
can you imagine? Like think about it. If we could just be have like space travel. I mean, like it is. Star Wars. You get in your speeder and you go. I mean, people just need to like. I don't understand why they can't. They keep us in this box down here. We're in this box, but there's so much more to everything. And I wish that people would like start, thinking about these things. And I mean, we could do
Oh,
so
I
many
do too.
things. It would be
Yep,
amazing. I mean, oh
it
my gosh,
is.
can you imagine being able to go from planet to planet, check out different galaxies? I mean, I can't even imagine. I thought it would be amazing.
Here's
But yeah,
something
I love.
else. Here's something else she said too. She said that if we had a spaceship that
Hmm.
could travel what we know as the fastest light, which is the speed of light, is the fastest distance that we're aware of.
Right.
She said it would take 99,000 years to get from one end of the Milky Way to the other, and that's
Wow.
just our galaxy.
That's just, oh my gosh.
I,
Can
I
you even?
can't.
Okay, well, then let
Yeah,
me ask you this about portals. I mean, there's portals to different areas, right? Areas. That's how I would think there'd be different portals into
I
different
have.
galaxies. I
Yeah,
mean, I don't know.
I have no. I can't even
Yeah,
comprehend how large the
I
universe
know.
is.
It's
Can't even
amazing.
comprehend. So
Wow.
anyway, so that was the stadium that we have
Awesome.
life on other planets and we can have
Hmm.
lifetimes on those worlds also. So there is every opportunity to learn anything you want to learn from all these other
Right.
planets that are out there. We can have lifetimes everywhere. So
Hmm.
the next one he took me to, this building was again absolutely huge, but
Hmm.
it was a rectangle kind of building. It was so large that I couldn't see the end of it.
Yeah.
And instead of having columns all around it, it only had columns in the front. It had that kind of
Okay.
pointed roof with the columns
Oh,
in the front, with
yeah.
all the steps. It looked like our Supreme Court building.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Does it look like a courthouse or something?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly what it looked like. Yeah, and
Cool.
all these steps leading up to the front. So we
Hmm.
go inside, and it was a library, an absolutely
Hmm.
humongous library, and it had wooden bookshelves, maybe 20 feet high, with books
Wow.
all the way down, and there were people everywhere. People were
Yeah.
studying, people were visiting with each other, looking for
Hmm.
books, all kinds of things. And this is one of my favorite parts about this was off. He took me to the left. My guide
Hmm.
took me to the left of the building, and there were these rooms about the size of an average master bedroom.
Hmm.
And these were rooms that you could go to learn.
Hmm.
And there was he took me to the one that was closest to me, and there was a woman in there. She had her back to me. She had
Hmm.
a red kind of a maybe kind of purplish type of gown, and she had long jet black hair down to her waist.
Hmm.
And she was watching a video screen,
Hmm.
and what she was watching was a battle that took place between the Native American Plains tribes and the
Hmm.
U.S. cavalry
Oh wow.
200 years ago. Yeah. And my
That's
guide says she is watching a battle. It was. And I thought, how in the world could she be watching
yeah.
something that happened 200 years ago?
That's what I was gonna say. How is she
Yeah,
watching it?
we didn't have any video recordings back then. There were
No.
nothing like that. And my guide said everything is recorded. And
How?
that just blew my mind.
That
I
blows
don't
me away. Because can you imagine? I mean, you think about billions just on this planet. What? There's 8 billion people on this planet.
Yep.
8 billion people. You're recording every moment of every single. Like it blows your mind when you think of it. But I mean, is recording it.
Yeah,
So
I can't even begin to
it's
describe how that works. I have absolutely no idea. But
yeah,
it has to be it's a God thing. There is no other explanation for it. I have
yeah,
no idea.
for
So
sure,
yeah, so
for sure.
anything that we want to learn, you can go to these rooms. They're kind of like
Hmm.
study rooms in our libraries now. You
Yeah.
can go in and you can watch these things, watch different parts of history. And
Hmm.
one of the things I want to do is when I get back, I want to go watch the Normandy invasion in World War II. I've always been
Oh,
fascinated by
yes.
that period of Earth's history. So anything you
Oh,
want to learn, you
I
can
would
go
like.
there and you can, yeah.
I want to go to what is it in oh my gosh, I'm blanking right now. The battle that we talked about it the other day. I talked about somebody. Oh my gosh, where you can go and there was the big. It was during the, I think it was during the Revolutionary, what, the Civil War, and it was, or was it the Civil War? Oh my gosh. Anyway,
Are you thinking
I'm
of
completely
Gettysburg?
blanking on the name. Gettysburg, thank you. Gettysburg,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I've always wanted, because I've seen a lot of shows. Of course, I've seen a lot of paranormal shows. They go there and they say that people can actually still hear the cannons and still smell the smoke from these, and it just
Oh,
fascinates me. And I mean, because that's the other thing. I mean, is it happening at the same time, or are we still? That's a whole other discussion, but it
yeah.
just fascinates me, and so I would love to just see that and see what happened, during, especially the Revolutionary War, the
Oh,
whole Paul Revere, all of that.
oh
I'm
yeah.
just totally into that, about
Me too.
how the Constitution, how they fought. I mean, I would love to be a fly on the wall and watch that. So that fascinates me, that we could like actually like go and like, okay, well, if you want to learn about it, here you go. It'd be like
Yeah.
amazing to be able to see that, because I always wonder.
Oh,
You
me
always have so
too.
many.
Me
Yeah.
too. It absolutely fascinates me to no end. Absolutely. Well, the next place he took me to
God.
was,
But my friends and I were
um,
talking about it. Anyway, go ahead.
yeah, yeah. The
Go
next
ahead.
place he took me to was a castle, and it was explained to me that anything you want to learn about Earth's history, if you didn't have a
Hmm.
lifetime during that period, everything is duplicated on the other side. So this
Well,
particular
that's
part of my
cool.
experience, yeah, this part of my experience was to show me that not only can you go somewhere to learn, but you can also see what the architecture of that time period looked like.
Oh,
So he
neat.
took me to an area where there was a castle, just a beautiful, large castle made out of stone.
Hmm.
And we walked in, and there was red carpet throughout the whole entrance of this castle, just a
Oh, neat.
beautiful, large castle. And the first thing I noticed was that there were paintings on the walls on the left
Hmm.
hand side and also on the right hand side. And there were life size paintings. And
Oh,
what they
wow.
were kings and queens and royalty that had lived during that period of Earth's history. So if
Oh.
so if you're on the other side and you say to yourself, you know what, I want to learn something about the medieval period of Earth's history, you could
Hmm.
go to this castle and you could see what they looked like. Like,
I
for
love it.
example, Queen Elizabeth. You could
Hmm.
go look at her, what she looked like, and it also had what they dressed during that, what they wore
Hmm.
during that time. And in front of each picture, there was a podium. And on the podium was a book. And the book
Hmm.
was about this person's lifetime, who they were as a
Hmm.
king or a queen, what their
Hmm.
decisions were, what they did as a royal, and everything is about their life there. So you can learn everything about them during that time period. Well, as I was standing there, off to my right, I could see a woman walking down there was a
Hmm.
circular stairwell, and there was this woman who was
Hmm.
walking down the stairwell, and she walked up to me,
Hmm.
and she had strawberry blonde hair, and kind of had a
Hmm.
peach or a kind of a golden kind of tunic or robe on. And she
Hmm.
walked up to me and she said, "Can I help you with anything?" And you know what I said to her, Chrissy?
What?
I said, "No thanks. I'm just looking."
What?
Just like,
I would have been
yeah,
like a million questions with.
yes.
Did you think? So let me ask you this: at this point, do you think that you're still like just in? Do you think you're? Where do you think? Like, do you think you're dead at this point, or you're just kind of going along with it?
I,
You're
I
just
was just
thinking,
going along with it. I
yeah.
really had no idea what was going on.
Oh
I
my
was just
god.
I was just going along with it the whole time.
Yeah.
I didn't
You're
know
like,
anything
okay,
about.
what's next? You know? And
Yeah,
then,
and
oh my gosh, you had a chance to ask a million questions. That's
I
funny.
could have asked this girl anything, and
Wow.
I still kick myself to this day, thinking, why in
Yeah,
the world didn't I? Yeah, and
right.
this is where my guide told me about people who have their jobs or their work on the other side.
Hmm.
God created all of us with gifts. We were
Yeah.
all given gifts and abilities at creation, and we pursue those gifts
Hmm.
on the other side. So, what this girl loved, she loved history. She loved to
Hmm.
study that particular era of Earth's history. So, if you wanted to learn about something, not only can you go to the library, not only
Hmm.
can you go to these video rooms inside the library,
Hmm.
but you can also go and talk to somebody who is an expert in that particular area of Earth's history.
Wow.
Isn't that
That's
fascinating?
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so let me ask you this. If like for instance, is like everything that's on earth, like the building, the countries, the build, you know what I mean? Like the buildings. So for
Yeah.
instance, like where Jerusalem is, like all these places that I would love to go, are they duplicated do you think they're duplicated, or do you think that the, they're duplicated down here because they are in heaven? Do you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
everything, and like and that means that each age. So, like for instance, if I wanted to go to when Christ was born to the village to Jerusalem where he right, I could go and learn about that and maybe go to that place,
You know,
right? I
I
would
don't
assume.
know.
I don't know.
I
I'm just saying.
I would assume too. They all my guide told me was that everything that is on Earth, like
Mhm.
like the pyramids or
Yeah. Oh,
the
yes.
Greek, it's on the other side first.
Okay.
So I don't know how all that part of it works. Just
Okay. No,
that.
but that's fascinating. I know. I want to go to Egypt big time. Pyramids and
Oh yeah.
that whole thing. That because there's no way that man made those. I'm sorry. I
You know,
think it.
isn't it amazing?
it
The pyramids are made of those huge stone blocks.
yeah, limestone and granite, and it's like,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, they were made before even the. I mean, 45 before they're saying they're 4,500 years old, 45,000 years, 4,500 years old. I think even before that. I mean, I'm thinking giants. I mean, I don't know who else could build something like that because
I
man
don't
can't.
either.
It's
Yeah,
crazy. Anyway, yeah.
they
Sorry.
don't even yeah, they don't even know to this day how they were built.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's amazing though. But anyway, so
So here's the last part of my experience. My
okay.
guide my guide took me to a field, a beautiful
Hmm.
wildflower field. And then he left, my guide left, and a gentleman, a being formed
Hmm.
showed up right in front of me. And my very first thought was, this is Jesus.
Oh wow.
And he had a white robe on, he had a
Hmm.
golden sash around his waist, and he had gold colored sandals that laced up his calves.
Hmm.
And he was different than anybody else I had seen. There was
Hmm.
so much light, so much energy coming from his face that I couldn't see what he looked like. But he spoke to me and
Hmm.
he said, you must tell them there is no death. And right after that, I woke up back in my body in the operating room.
Hmm.
And what he was wanting me to do was to spend my life telling people about my experience,
Yeah.
because it wasn't just for me. My experience they gave
Yeah.
to me so that I could tell it and share it with others,
Yeah.
because
For sure.
it's such a message of hope for people to
Hmm.
know that when we lose loved ones here, they're not really gone. They're just in another place that we can't get to until our lifetime is finished.
Yeah.
And that living here on earth isn't our real home. Our real
Hmm.
home is where we were before we came into this lifetime here. and that we are here just to
Mhm.
learn and to grow and to develop. And then when we finish our lifetime, we go back home. So that was my experience.
That's amazing. I mean, and how long were you out? Like, how long were before they were able to revive you?
7 minutes.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
I
say it
was.
again.
What was that?
Say it again
Oh,
because it you made it out.
yeah, it was 7 minutes. I was officially
7 minutes.
gone. Yeah,
Okay, how long did it feel to you?
it felt like 2 hours.
Yeah, because I
That
think
was.
time, okay, that was where my next question was. Time is different
It is
on
different.
the other
It's
side than it is here.
it's
Um,
it is different.
how do you what do you did you like, okay, I know you're probably not even paying attention to this, right? Because you're just going through what you're being, you're going through the tour and everything. Did it even cross your mind like, oh well, this is like, I'm here for this is taking a long time, or what was
No,
going through your head, your mind during
I
all this? I just
I everything was going on so quickly that I
Mhm.
didn't even have an opportunity to think what was really going on.
Yeah,
I was just going with this whole experience from one place to the next.
right.
And I didn't even know. I had no idea that we had spirit guides. I didn't have a
Yeah.
clue. In
Well, see, and
fact,
that's so
it,
amazing to me that they.
yeah,
I mean, let me just tell you this real quick. My mother's side of the family, very devout, very. I mean, I'm talking same thing, going to church all the time, whatever. That's their whole life is that, right?
yeah,
And I just feel like, oh, I forgot my train of thought. Sorry, I was gonna ask
that's
you
okay.
something. Anyway, oh my gosh, it just left me. But anyway, but I guess my point is that religion is man-made, in my opinion. I
Yes,
mean,
yes,
this is how I've thought since I was little. I mean, I've told the story before where, I mean, 9, 10 years old, I'm like, I'm not going to church. My parents, God love them, they did. They were like, okay, they didn't force me to go. I just am more spiritual than anything else. I think that religion, it keeps us down. You know what I mean? It just keeps you mired in this little box so that you don't expand. You can't even think about some of the things that you were. I mean, if I told my cousins about me talking to you, they'd probably be like, "What?"
I know.
Past lives and
Yep.
just all these things, and it's just it's amazing. You have to like realize that life is so much bigger than that. It's so much more, and we can have so much more enrichment if we would just break out of the chains that has been this matrix. Is how I call it, the matrix, because
Yeah.
of how they've kept us down for so long.
Oh, I
And
agree. I look at religion as having every religion has some truth to it. But
yeah,
when I had my NDE, I didn't get any feeling that there was only one religion.
yeah,
I got the feeling that whatever religion leads you closer to God is the
mhm,
right one for you. That there
right,
is there is no right one. There is no just one religion. It's more of a
right.
spirituality,
It is.
and
It's a spirituality.
to live your life in kindness, to live your life in compassion, in
Mhm,
non-judgment, and just doing your
mhm.
best.
Exactly. And that's what it's about. And I think people forget, because like I said, there's so much materialistic things, they say that you have to rise to this level, that level. I mean,
Yeah.
my brothers are very materialistic, and I'm so opposite that. And it's so funny that I'm like, well, we grew up in the same house. How is that so different? But it is, for
Yes,
different people,
it
because
is.
people, you get mired in the matrix. You get mired in it, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot that I have a connection to God. And I think a lot of this is that we have to search. A lot of it is to find your way back to God. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh, I
find that
agree.
connection. Whether it's whatever religion that you believe, whatever, that's fine. And however you want to connect, whether it's prayer, meditation, whatever it is that helps you connect to our Creator, that is the most important thing, really, in life, and how you
Absolutely.
treat people. And
You just hit the nail on the head. That was probably the most wonderful explanation I've ever heard. That was fantastic. That's exactly what it's like.
yeah. So, and I'm just like, I just really want people to wake up. I'm so tired of, everybody is so focused on the negative. We have to get
Yeah,
out of that, because that's not what life is about. That's not what God, listen, the way the life is right now, that's not how God intends it. How you're describing it, that's what we're supposed to have here.
yeah.
Okay? And we're not supposed to be all controlled and, oh my gosh, and now they're talking about this stupid chipping people and that. I mean, the whole thing, it's just so mind-boggling to me that people aren't like waking up going like, wow, this, I'm not
Oh
supposed to be
yeah.
living this way. God wouldn't want me to live this way. We're supposed to just use our talents for good, help people, experience things,
There's
help
a
others experience things.
one of my one of my favorite quotes is from the Dalai Lama, and
Hmm.
he said our main purpose in this life is to help others, and if you can't
Yeah,
help them, at least don't hurt them. And
yeah,
I love that.
I love
What a
that.
beautiful
Yeah,
philosophy.
definitely. I mean, okay, so I had just a couple. Let's see. I'm just looking at my little list. I think we covered most of it. I pretty much had everything. Um, let's see. There was one of. Oh, I wanted to ask you about. Um, you mentioned that there were people with. Okay, so you saw a bunch of people. You saw people there, obviously. So are we like this? Or are we like a higher density, a vibrational density? Like, how did you perceive that?
That's a really good question because I always wondered about that too. Everybody I saw, I could see them just as I can see you right now. They
Okay.
everybody had form. Everybody had bodies.
Yeah.
The
Hmm.
bodies seem to be made of, the only way I can describe it really is like really condensed heart form energy. It
Hmm.
because the body doesn't age, it doesn't get sick, it doesn't have any injuries. It's the perfect body that we have on the other side. But they look just like ours, but they're made
Okay.
differently. They're
So we're
actually
just like
yeah,
us, like but more just intense, I guess, or
exactly. Yeah, there's no difference. Everybody has
observant.
form and everyone is recognizable. And
Yeah.
everyone has their ideal self, how they want to
Hmm.
appear, and
Okay.
it's all just seems to be made of really high, intense energy because everybody has
Hmm.
form. Everyone has bodies over there, just like we do.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Is it like more of like, do they emanate light, or is it just energy, moving energy, I guess is
they
what
look
I'm
just
just
like
trying
we
to
do.
like.
Yeah, just like us. The only person that I saw that looked different was Jesus
With Jesus.
because of all the light that was coming
Hmm.
from him. But if you were to
Hmm.
walk on any city street in any part of the country, that's how
Hmm.
people looked. They looked just like we
Okay.
do. And some people wear gowns or tunics, and some people wear
Yeah,
jeans and t-shirts. It's completely up to the individual.
that's so cool.
Yeah.
And when you heard Jesus, like, was it like, did he like through his mouth, or how did you hear it?
It was kind of like in my mind. I heard
Okay.
him speaking to me in my mind when he said, "You must tell them there is no death." And it just reverberated throughout my mind.
Hmm.
And I don't know if I heard him speak to me or if I just heard it in my head. I
Yeah.
don't know, but it was
But he was in
unmistakable.
front of you, so he was conveying that, in other words, to
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Conveying. What was this? What did it say? Like, what was it? A deep voice? Like, what kind of a voice was it? Or was it your voice? Or was it?
No,
How did? No.
it was a male voice.
Hmm.
That's all I can really
Yeah.
describe it as, just a male voice.
Oh, interesting.
Very very deep toned,
Yeah.
um, deeper than my voice, and
Okay.
just saying you must tell them there is no death. And that's what I've been trying to do ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's just amazing. I got chills. I got chills from that. That's just amazing.
It is
I
totally.
let's see. Oh, okay. So the other question I had was, hold on, I'm almost there. Oh yeah. Okay. So we know what's going on in the world today, right? All the crazy, all the evil, all this nutty, these people that are just, they belong in a straitjacket, is my opinion. These people that are running the world right now. I'm just like, oh my gosh. So my question is, do people who are evil, committing egregious acts against little people, humanity as a whole, do they choose, do you think that they choose their life to be that way, or do you think that they're sent here by others trying to kill humanity? Like, do you think that they are just minions of evil, or do you? I'm just,
You know,
you probably
that's
don't know. Just
yeah,
curious.
that's a question I've had for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't mention that to me, so I don't
Yeah.
know. But I can tell you this: the other side is made up of levels, and
Okay.
there are different levels of development, different levels
Mm-hmm.
of spirituality.
Yes.
And these beings who create those kind of experiences that hurt others,
Mm-hmm.
that commit horrific crimes and violence against humanity and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
they're undeveloped souls. They haven't learned as much as other souls. So when they
Okay.
cross over, someone like, let's say someone like Hitler, for example,
Okay.
when they cross over, they also have their life review. But something that's unique about the life review is that
Mm-hmm.
you can feel what your actions felt like to other people. So he would have had to
Okay.
experience the feelings of his
Good.
actions. Yeah. And so
The
they're
civilian Jews, yes. And
yeah,
who knows who else? I
yeah,
hope he's
nothing
saying.
gets yeah, nobody gets away with any kind of horrific evil act. Everything is known to God.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I think. And it's just like these people, they, I mean, even like, I mean, I'm just going to say, even these people that are just going along with, they're not, they're not
Yeah.
actually doing the crime or the things themselves, but they're just going along with the narrative, going along with the whatever psyop they're perpetrating or whatever is going on
Yep.
that is, whether it's the mainstream media or whatever it is, whoever is going along with these evil people. I mean, even though you're not directly, you're not, you yourself are not doing the actual hurt, but you are, because you're lying to people. You're not telling the truth about what's going on. You're instilling fear into people. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I feel like I really want these people to, like, I always say, oh, I can't wait. I hope they're burning in. I mean, this is really not Christian, but I feel like, I want them to burn in hell because of the horrific things. I mean, mainly with the little kids, I just have major
Oh,
issues.
I agree, but
Major issues with.
everything,
It's just
nothing is hidden
horrific.
from God. Nothing is hidden from God at
Yeah,
all. So all of that gets taken care of, and people have to feel what they did, what their actions did to others, and they have to
yeah.
feel that too.
Well, good, good.
Yeah.
That makes me feel a little bit better. But geez, Well, thank you so much for coming on my show. I do
Well, Chrissy,
appreciate
thank you
it.
for the invitation. I love sharing my story, and it's such an honor to be on your show and to try to encourage others. So thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Well, thank you, and I will see you. I'll probably, who knows, talk to you again sometime. Who knows? We'll see
That
what.
would be great. That would be great. Anytime.
Okay. Well, you take care.
You too, Chrissy. Thank you.
Thank you.
All
Bye.
right. Bye bye.
All right. So that was um John J. Davis. Thank you so much, John, for coming on my show. Really appreciate it. And I hope everybody enjoyed that. I don't know if you guys had. Oh, I forgot to ask him about the animals. I do know that they do have animals there, and that, yeah. I forgot to ask him about that. I'll message him and see what he says about that. I totally forgot about that because I wanted to know about my little pet. But anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed that. And I guess that's it for today. So thanks for coming by, everybody. Appreciate it. And I will see you later. Have a good one, everyone. I'm out of here.